Hi, my name's Havala Forgi, and thank you for joining me in this week's conversation about unexpected joy and spiritual renewal. If you're like me, you may have a lot of questions this week. Where is God in all of this? And especially because of this project, I've been asking, is it right to feel joyful at a time when there's so much pain? Is it right to look for the beautiful things that God offers us in a time that is unprecedented and violent and so very challenging? But I'm reminded that the crucifixion of Jesus means that God is present in all our suffering. The crucifixion of Jesus means that God is with and within anyone being hurt. And so these moments in our history, God is perhaps more present than ever. And we also know that the arc of history bends toward justice. As a wildflower can bloom in the middle of any kind of destruction, forcing its way through rubble or ashes, God's joy is present. And I think God wants us to find it. And so we persist, not because we are blind to the troubles of the world, not because we are blind to anyone's pain or the radical injustices taking place at this moment in our history, but because we as believers in Jesus Christ are defiant in our faith. We are defiant in our search for God's presence. And in that presence, we find a quiet and deep joy. So this week, we are joined by Catherine of Siena, a very interesting woman of faith. She was born the 23rd of 25 children. And of course, that makes me think more about her mother than her. But she was very young and in that family, probably raised a lot by her siblings. And she declared at the age of 7 years old that she was going to follow a life of religious devotion. She lived many, many years in cloistered isolation. And during that time, she wrote letters that had a widespread influence both on everyday people of faith and on esteemed leaders. Another interesting note about Catherine of Siena is that she lived at a time of great plagues. She lived through the Black Death that she survived as a baby, and another plague that struck her hometown in 1374, 6 years before she died. There were a lot of people that fled that area because of this disease, but Catherine, along with other people of faith, stayed behind to nurse the ill. They could see the arc of history. In Catherine of Siena's writings, many sections begin with the words, God speaks. And these are revelatory moments where she felt that God was speaking messages to her that she needed to communicate with the world. They're beautiful expressions of God's love and how we are required to communicate that love to our fellow humans. So here's one of her writings, and it also begins, God speaks. Loving me and loving your neighbor are inseparable. To the degree that you love me, you love your neighbor, because love of her comes from me. It is my gift to you. Through the love of neighbor that I make possible for you, your virtue grows. You prove that you possess me by nurturing love of me in the soul of your neighbor. Enamored of my truth, you must never cease to serve all creatures according to their special needs. One, you will help with words, another with the example of your life. To one, you will show this virtue, to another, something else. I want you to know that your every virtue and every failing involves your neighbor. Anyone who does not love her neighbor, who does not help her, who does not pray for her, injures herself. You are bound to help one another by word and in truth, by your own soul, selflessly, not to love your neighbor. By depriving her even of the good that you owe her is to injure her, is to do her evil. This is a debt you owe every creature, but especially those who are close at hand. My prayer for you this week is that you will take seriously the love of neighbor, that you will find out what your neighbor needs and act upon it, whether that's something active in your love, or if they need an understanding of what has happened to them or what happens to them. I pray that, like Catherine of Siena, God will speak to you, and that's where you will find understanding, and that will mean for you that your soul can never be sad or shaken, no matter what happens. Bless you this week as you search for God. Amen.